I had said that it's kind of difficult, that I feel bad for the current chief rabbi of England, who will have to be attending eventually the coronation ceremony of King Charles III. It's going to be this Shabbos. And that's a little bit of a problem, as I said. Now, there are those who, based on the Meiri, say, and others, Rabbi Rabinovich held this way. I remember I was surprised that he held this way, but it's true. And a long line of chief rabbis of England have to hold this way, that the Church of England is not necessarily idolatry. And all the chumras that the Rambam brings, that we have to consider all forms of Christianity idolatry, and all their churches are strictly forbidden. Can't enter it. You can't even enter a town that has a church, let alone be involved in any of their services. All that is forbidden. But they have their psak that permits this. You could go read this in the Jerusalem Post. I was expecting this to come out, and indeed it came out, I think, yesterday or 2 days ago. An interview with, I think, the most unfortunate man currently in Judaism, Chief Rabbi Ephraim Mervis, who has to go along with these things. He's basically an anus. And you could read that he's basically bending over backwards to try to justify how he is basically being commanded by His Majesty to show up on Shabbos at the biggest church in England, the biggest, holiest church in England. I say this with sarcasm. And participate in this ceremony with other clergy, with representatives of other religions. That, I think that's terrible. You know why? Because he has to give credence to other religions. And so we're all religions. We're all on the same level, which is ridiculous. They're all avodah zarah, and he's supposed to be standing up for the truth. So, like I said, I'm very sorry for this poor Rabbi Mervis. And I know there are people in England, I know there are people who are sympathetic to this and say everything is just fine. Chazal refer to these events as a ginusa, right? It's the first parakut of avodah zarah, Yom Ginusa Shelahem, and also their birthdays. So this is a ginusa. This is exactly as described. Maimonides makes it very clear. What's going to be happening is a big day of avodah zarah. You can't do business now with these British people starting today, 3 days before, right? Within 3 days of what's going on. This is something that I think is very sad. And one of the things they're going to be doing is anointing the king. And they prepared special oil in Jerusalem, no less. Al Yadei, it was participated in by all these big shots in the various Christian churches, the Greek Orthodox and the Episcopal, whoever's in charge here, and the head of the Anglican church around here. It turns out there's Anglicans here in Israel, an Arab guy. And they had this whole thing. They had to go to the Mount of Olives and pick the olives themselves and press it and do their whole avodah zarah ritual with their oil and spice it up and make it smell good and send it over for the anointment of the king. And this is something they do. And by the way, a lot of the trappings of these rituals, they get from us. Anointing the king is something that we should be doing. So at least maybe this will get Jews to think perhaps maybe we should have our own monarchy, also our own Davidic monarchy, and restore that and have some stability. The British, I think, benefit from the fact that they have a certain national stability through their hereditary monarch who represents certain things. If I can quote the British politician Carl Benjamin, he's talking about how I don't feel represented politically by anybody here in Israel. There's no political party that represents my interests. I don't know who to vote for because I know that b'diavad. So you have to vote for a right-wing party because it'd be worse if it's leftist. I don't know. The rabbi argues that all the time. I hope he's right, so I trust him and others who do that. But I myself am not so convinced. Obviously, I don't feel represented. So this politician said, he's a commentator. He said, I don't feel represented either by any of my politicians. He tried to run for office, by the way. Says, but I do feel represented by the king or other people like that. He represents me. Yes, that's my representative. So too, I wish there was a Davidic monarch here in the land of Israel who would enforce Torah law. That is certain. That what I believe. That would represent me. That's what I want, and I think that we should have such a thing. And like I said, I feel very sorry for these British people who have to go along with this great avodah zarah pageant ceremony. It's so unfortunate they're stuck in Chutz La'aretz and they have to go along with this. You could read the details. How I was telling my wife, it's so ironic. They're changing the service so as not to use microphones, so it'll be kosher for Shabbos for the chief rabbi. So no, they're making sure to compromise for him so that it won't offend his sensibilities with regards to keeping the Shabbos. And doing it all in this church it doesn't offend his sensibilities. They claim this is their place is sanctified. What do they use to sanctify their churches, by the way? to show them how 180 degrees off from reality they are. They have relics. They bury their big shots in the churches. That is, underneath the churches, they have catacombs and tombs and all that. That's where they entomb people within these churches. I think it's in Windsor Castle, if you know what Windsor is. You guys know what Windsor is? London's their capital. Buckingham Palace is in their capital. The Palace of Westminster, where their legislature, what's it called? Not the Knesset. Parliament, yeah, Parliament, British Knesset. And all this is in Westminster. Westminster has an abbey. All these those are religious places. And then there's Windsor, which is out in the countryside. And that's where the king actually lives. So it's like there's this old castle in the grounds and all that. And they have a big shot church there where they have all their big ceremonies. And that's where they bury all their previous monarchs and other royal big shots. That's where the last queen is buried, underneath the chapel. So that's what sanctifies it. Whereas in Rav Shechter says, according to real Torah, Judaism, you have to keep the dead far away from any sacred place that contaminates. Even David HaMelech can't be buried on Har HaBayis. There's no such thing. And that's even what they did in the early 20th century. There's certain Arab big shots buried on Har HaBayis. Yeah. I'll send you a video. Rabbi Levi has a video you can see about explaining this thing. You can go see it there. It's pretty bad. So those God willing should be removed. I'm just trying to say that they're 100%, they're nothing like us. Any good idea that they might have, morality, etc., or ethical or moral ideas that are worthy, they got from us. And everything else that they made up is nonsense. And that's how a Jewish person should believe. That's certainly what Maimonides believed. I wonder what Rashi would say also. So this is very unfortunate.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.